welcome to the Title Town Huddle on the gruelingtruth.net.
Welcome to the Title Town Huddle at thegruelingtruth.net, where the legends speak. I am Joe Pritchard, and being joined tonight, and most every time we do this, by Aaron Zepnick. Aaron, how's it going tonight?
I'm doing well. I'm spending my last few hours as a 30-something-year-old here tonight. Excited all day for the show. Can't wait to get started.
All right. Hopefully everything goes well with the birthday plans here for you as well. Hopefully the Packers can give you some early birthday presents, too, here. But we got a couple of breaking news items to talk about tonight. Would you like to start with the moves the Packers made today, or the big change in the NFC North?
Well, the big news, I think, is the Teddy Bridgewater injury in Minnesota. Obviously, you don't like to see anybody go down, but it is a little bit of a hit to our division rival, which is, unfortunately for them and fortunately for us, a little bit of a shot in the arm, I think, because I think they were destined to have a pretty good year.
Yeah, they were definitely among the biggest challengers in the NFC with Bridgewater, and now without him, I'm seeing that they may not be that. And who else in the division do you think could step up this year? I mean, Detroit's down Calvin Johnson for good. Chicago is just being what they have been lately. I'm starting to think that the path is gilded for the Packers as long as they keep themselves healthy, which isn't always a guarantee either.
Absolutely, and being healthy, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, and being healthy for 17 weeks is and more to get to the Super Bowl obviously is a tall task. But I like the depth that the Packers have over any team in the division. I think that the Demarius Randall and Quentin Rollins will definitely help in the secondary. Another year under their belt with the vet now, Sam Shields. So, Minnesota definitely took a hit today, and I like our chances to win the division even more now than I did before.
Right. Now, what I was seeing with the Bridgewater injury is that it was a non-contact injury, and the reports I am hearing was a dislocated knee and a torn ACL plus other ligament damage. So that tells me we're not seeing Bridgewater at all this year. And I even saw a few concerned wonder about how his career may be affected by this whole thing. It doesn't sound like this is a clean injury, and it sounds like it caused a lot of concern in Minnesota. So this could have wider ranging effects than just the one season we're talking about here. This could affect the NFC North going forward.
Absolutely. I believe RG3 had a similar injury, and we all know how that's kind of turned out for him and his career. He's getting another shot in Cleveland this year, but I think the big thing here is Minnesota's still going to be competitive. I think they're 8-8 team even without Bridgewater just because of their defense and Mike Zimmer. I think that they have some good young talent around whoever steps in at quarterback, whether it's Sean Hill or Joel Stave, or if they go out and get somebody. I like Stephon Diggs. I think he's a good player. Laquan Treadwell, spending a first-round pick on him. I believe that Minnesota has the talent to compete. It's just, can they get somebody to throw the ball to these guys and hand it off to Adrian Peterson?
Right, and I was seeing other football fans on Twitter today mention that with Denver making their starting quarterback change, wondering if that gave Denver a great place to put Mark Sanchez here. And I responded to one of those and said, that's a great way to ruin a Minnesota fan's day right there.
I had heard that they were actually talking to Dallas about Mark Sanchez today. So yeah, I'm not sure if the Romo thing has Dallas shopping for a veteran quarterback or what, but I just read that somewhere. It's not confirmed or denied, but yeah, it definitely shakes things up.
Yeah, now as a Packer fan that grew up in the late 80s and early 90s, hearing Dallas and Minnesota having quarterback trouble kind of brings a little smile to my heart, but I do really hope that Bridgewater does heal up. I'd love to see him continue his career here. He's one of those players. There's some players on opposition teams you just don't like because you don't like them, and there's some players you don't like simply because of the jersey they wore. I never had a problem with Bridgewater, and I thought I was actually a little bit scared when I saw Minnesota take him. So hopefully he can bounce back here. But let's shift gears a little bit here. Let's go and talk about the Green Bay Packers here for just a moment. And today, we are recording this on Tuesday night here, out for Wednesday most likely here. So this would be yesterday for you listening here. The Packers cut Tim Mastay, their punter for the last few years here, and claimed a punter from Tampa Bay off of waivers named Jacob Shum. Now, Mastay didn't have a great year last year, but it appeared to everybody that he had won the punting competition when Peter Mortel was cut, but now both of the punters in camp are now on their way out. What do you make of all this?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Joe. I was very disappointed when I saw that Peter Mortel was cut. I thought he outkicked Mastay in the preseason games and in family night when I was present. And I understand the hang time for Mastay was a little better, but I mean, do you want the guy that can consistently boom it, or do you want a guy that can boom one, shank another, boom one, shank another? I felt like every fifth punt Mastay was very inconsistent throughout his career, not just last year or anything I've seen. But, you know, so I got over the fact that they cut Peter Mortel, and now today I see this, and I'm going, hold on a minute. And little background on me, I coached with the Green Bay Blizzard last year and in camp this year. And the big thing is our kicker who kicked for us was friends with a guy they brought in last year that was kind of a silent bring-in to compete with Mastay early in camp. And he was actually told, now this is third hand, but he was actually told from what I heard that he can punt the ball, but Mason Crosby really likes Tim Mastay as a holder. He doesn't want to, shake up that routine. So they let this kid go, and I don't even remember his name, to be honest with you. But so Peter, I saw he was holding at family night for some of the field goals, and I also have seen him holding extra points and a couple of field goals in the preseason, and appeared to do a good job. And I know that when it comes down to it as a coach, you're thinking, okay, how many phases of the game or how many different values does this player carry? And as a punter, there's not a lot of value other than maybe being able to hold or kick off. And if Mastay was that much better of a holder, I could understand them keeping him. Now, what doesn't make sense to me is you cut them both, and now Mason has to get used to a brand new holder. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense from the outside looking in. However, I'm excited to see a punter that looks like a safety. From what I hear, he's like 5'11", 212 pounds or something like that, and he's ripped. So, I mean, if he's a guy that can, lay the wood to one of these returners, that'll excite Packer fans and in a big way.
Oh, absolutely. I did see a picture of the new punter here. They were comparing how Mastay looked to how the new punter looked here, and there was a considerable size difference here. So possibly nice to have. Hopefully he doesn't have to make any tackles. That is not a great situation, but it's nice to know he at least has the body type to be able to do that. Now, as far as the holding thing, I could see that being a tiebreaker if you've got two guys that you think are about even in their primary role, but the one guy is more comfortable as the holder for your kicker. I could see that being a tiebreaker, but yeah, it's going to definitely be an adjustment this year. Now, I'm remembering back to 2012 when Mason Crosby had his struggles, wondering if we're going to see a little bit more of that comeback with him change here, but I just hope I'm worrying more than I need to be here on that one.
Let's hope so. The other thing to consider as well is salary, and I think that may be overlooked. But Shum's base salary of $525,000 is nearly $700,000 less than Mastey's $1.2 million. So if this guy is, performing roughly the same, and they're basically getting a bargain for the same type punter. If the net, the net average and the hang time and stuff and the directional kicking is what I think Mastey was best at. If this Shum guy can directional punt, then so be it. I have no problem with moving on from Mastey at all.
All right. Well, we'll move on from that position here. I guess the one other thing we can talk about the current team as we speak here, has there been anybody else that has stuck out to you in training camp as a guy that's either won a job or maybe lost a job?
Well, it's unfortunate about, the injury with John Crockett. I really think he was having a good camp. I think he was running well to win that third roster, the third halfback position roster spot. I think who benefits from that is Burks, number 34. I think he basically made the team now, and I wasn't not impressed with him, but I wasn't super impressed with him either. I think he was just kind of a run-of-the-mill third back that the Packers have had some decent third backs in camp, and you don't really think a whole lot of them, but Crockett was a guy that I thought could be a difference maker as a third back, not just a guy that's on the roster just to play special teams or whatever it might be. But some of the guys that I liked in the two times that I was there, Geronimo Allison, wide receiver, number 81, and also Bryce, the safety, number 29. I think they both showed some real good signs of being able to play at this level.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard nothing but good things on Bryce coming into this last preseason game, and hopefully we'll get a chance to get a good look at him on Thursday a little bit more here. But really nice to have some depth at that safety position. It's been a position that's been that has hurt the Packers, I should say, over the past couple years, a little bit more so than others. I was also rather impressed with Joe Callahan. Now, I don't know if the Packers are going to carry 3 quarterbacks, but he makes a very good case for it. Definitely raw. Definitely gonna need some work, but if he's starting for us, we're in big trouble anyway. So I would really love to see what he could do in a couple of years if we're able to hang on to him.
Absolutely. He is another guy that's looked very good. I think you almost have to consider keeping 3 quarterbacks with the health of Brett Hundley. Is that ankle going to be a continuing thing? And if Aaron would go down, Lord forbid, for Packer fans, we would definitely have a flashback to the year that Rodgers went down against the Bears, and we had Scott Tolzien and Matt Flynn, and I believe Vince Young was even a quarterback for us at one point. So, it would definitely be a huge, I guess, crippling blow if Aaron went down. But Callahan showed some signs that if he were the guy, I wouldn't be as nervous as I was that year.
Absolutely. We did see Seneca Wallace back in 2013 as well, and even for a veteran, he looked rather shaky before he went down. We had Tolzien for a couple weeks, and he's now off to, I believe, Indianapolis at this point here after sitting behind Rodgers for quite some time here now. And then the triumphant return of Matt Flynn, who kept the season just afloat enough for us to have that big win against the Bears at the end. So that'll always be one of the better memories for me on that front. But let's go ahead and take our first break here on the show. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about our histories as fans.
Get in the Title Town Huddle with Joe Pritchard and Aaron Zepnick on thegruelingtruth.net.
All right, welcome back to the show here. Aaron, we talked a little bit about the present team here just a few moments ago here, but let's get your thoughts on how you became a Packer fan and some of your best memories from being one.
Well, I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I spent a lot of time going to Lambeau Field as a teen, riding players such as Keith Woodside and Sterling Sharp and Bernell Dent, several Packer players on my bike when I was a teenager. But even before that, I remember they used to have Packer Fan Appreciation Day where you could go out on Nitschke Field back in, early 80s. And I remember meeting, Paul Kaufman, John Jefferson, James Lofton, Lynn Dickey, all these players, Ken Rutgers, all these players when I was a kid. And I had pictures taken, got autographs and stuff like that. So it's been in my family. I'm a third-generation Packer fan. As far as I know, probably more than that. But my grandfather was a huge fan. My dad was a huge fan. And, I've kind of grew up on it. And it was a big thing in our house. If the Packers were on, the phone was not to ring. The doorbell was not to be rang. At halftime, we'd go outside and throw the football around in the backyard. It was always a tradition. And I think the important thing here is, every year, the first game of the year, I've kind of started a new tradition with my kids. We dress them in Packer jerseys the first game, and they go out on the front steps. And every year, it's been neat to see my three youngest with the Packer jerseys on and seeing how they've grown up for the last 5 years since we bought our house here right by Lambeau Field. And my wife gets excited about it and stuff too. So it's a family tradition. It's something that when the Packers lose, Dad's probably in a really bad mood for a couple of hours at least, if not days, depending on how they lost. And if the Packers win, it's a lot easier to be in a good mood.
Oh, I definitely know the feeling on that one. There were a few losses, even these days, that throw me for a loop for at least an afternoon, if not into the next morning here, as much as I hate to admit it. But so you got the place right by Lambeau Field, and that is an awesome family tradition you have there with the pictures throughout the years here. Now, when you go back through your memory bank, what were some of the first games you remember, for some of the first good memories you have with the Packers?
Oh, a lot of my childhood was spent losing to the Bears. A lot of my childhood was the Mike Singletary days and the Walter Payton days and the Barry Sanders. Until Brett Favre and Reggie White came, it was really hard to remain loyal to the Packers. But when Brett and Reggie came and we had, the obvious guys, Antonio Freeman, Robert Brooks, and we won the Super Bowl in '96. Even before then, it was exciting to be part of that winning tradition that I'd heard about all my upbringing from the glory years. And my favorite Packer game I was ever at was actually the San Francisco 49er rain game the year they went to the Super Bowl in '96, and Desmond Howard returned the punt for the touchdown, and we went on to beat Carolina the following, in the NFC Championship to go beat the Patriots. That was awesome, being there and in that atmosphere for the playoffs. And then I also went to the playoff game against San Francisco the year we lost to the Rams at 2002 maybe? 2000 or 2002. I believe the Rams went on to play the Patriots in the Super Bowl that year. And we were both 12-4, San Francisco and us, and they had to come to us as a wild card. And we actually beat them at home with Terrell Owens and stuff. And it was kind of payback for that Terrell Owens catch over the middle of the year before. With
you mean the game that Packer fans know as the Rice fumbled game, right?
Yes. Yeah, where Mike Pryor, I remember Terrell Owens catching the 25-yard touchdown over the middle with Mike Pryor. in the picture. I remember that like it's a still frame in my head. It was one of the down moments of my adulthood, being a Packer fan. But yeah, there's been a lot of great times. We've been, pretty competitive since, Reggie and Brett came here, and Ron Wolf really put us back on the map. I think a lot of kudos go to him, and it's been a great joy sharing that with my kids and with my brothers and all my siblings, and it was always fun to go down to Oshkosh to Uncle Steve's house, and he'd make chili, or we'd watch the game, and the cousins from Oshkosh would come over, and next thing you know, there's 30 people there. It was always the kids were sitting on the floor or outside playing football while the adults were out in the house and eating chili and drinking beer. So
there must have been some epic snowball games while the actual game was going on too, I would imagine, in that backyard.
Oh yeah, that was always the funnest, playing in the snow. It didn't hurt as much as when you landed on the grass when we played tackle.
No. That was a tradition in our family as well. Didn't have nearly that number of kids around here, but just about every time me and my cousins got together and over a weekend, it was always going to be a football game somewhere. So I know exactly where you're coming from on that here. Now, I did catch the end of the 80s myself here, so I did feel some of that pain here. But I would imagine that you felt a little bit more elated about the instant replay game than I did, given I only had to go through a year or two of losing to the Bears before that one came around.
Absolutely. It was a big thing for about 3 or 4 years, that the T-shirts that were made, and the buttons now that are still going around. If you go to Lambeau and you sit through a Packer game and you walk around and you see enough people, you're going to see the buttons that say, "After further review, the Bears still suck." T-shirts and hats and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, that was a great time too with Mikowski, with the forward pass. Was he past the line of scrimmage or not? And some good memories.
Yeah, and Packer fans know in their heart he was definitely behind that line of scrimmage that day.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, when I was growing up in the Mikowski era, I do believe at one point I did let my hair grow a little bit long in the back to try and mimic him. But by that point, he was on the downside. The injuries and the holdouts had been taking their toll at that point here. But when I grew up, I actually grew up football on Sundays was one of those few things I could connect with my dad on, because he was working nights a lot at his job. And that was one thing I knew we were always going to do, though, on Sundays. Sundays at noon or 3 o'clock, if they happened to be playing the Rams on the West Coast, was about the only time they didn't play at noon in those days. I always knew that there'd be the Packer game on, and as a younger kid, I probably spent more time running around pretending to be a football player than watching those games. But the one side of my family too, the people that were interested in being in watching football, tended to be Vikings fans. That made some of the family visits a little bit interesting, too, as I grew up about, I would say, 90 minutes east of the Twin Cities, on the Wisconsin side of things, of course, here. But growing up, there was always more of a Packer-Viking rivalry and Packer-Viking vibe in my house. I would imagine, though, out your way, the Bears were the primary opponent, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. It was always the Bears, and then in the 90s, it became kind of a Dallas Cowboys thing, because they always seemed to end our season.
Yeah, and the first
Smith,
three
Troy days.
Yeah, the first 3 playoff seasons I saw the Packers play, they were getting knocked off by the Cowboys, and it got a little old after a while, and we really did want them in '96, but we got Carolina instead. Not that we were complaining too loudly, though. We were 1 game away from the Super Bowl, and how can you pass that up? Right.
And at that point, we had 20 years of not such fond memories. So, I have a Packer basement man cave, and I have a plaque from 1995 actually up there on the wall that says, it's got the team photo and all the guys from it, and that was my father's that was passed on to me when he passed. So some memorabilia and stuff that Dad had, and just being around him, and he was a coach, and he was my coach in a lot of sports, and it was something outside of the court or the field or whatever to share a common bond, and I think that is more than anything what I miss. So having the shows here to carry on his legacy kind of is a great avenue for me.
Well, we will do our best to keep carrying on that legacy. We'll keep talking Packers over the course of the season here. I think next week we'll start getting into a little bit more of the preseason wrap-up and a season preview, as well as talking about the Jacksonville game here. But this is kind of more of a show to introduce who we are and what we're all about here. We'll also be trying to bring on some guests as well to talk some Packers with us. But if weeks we don't get them, you're going to get a lot more of us here. Do you happen to have any final thoughts you want to share with us tonight?
Well, just, I appreciate everything you've done to get the show up and running. Hopefully someone, hears that we are two passionate Packer fans that know a little bit about football, or, like what we bring to the table, and we can get some partners and some guests on here. And I do look forward to meeting with a couple of the Packers, current and former, to talk about coming on as guests. So I know we've both been diligently giving the effort, and I think the Packer fans will appreciate what we bring to the table.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed getting to meet your host here this week, and next week we'll get a little bit more into the game here. I am Joe Pritchard for Aaron Zepnick. This is the Title Town Huddle on the Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.
Thank you for listening to the Title Town Huddle on thegruelingtruth.net.